Good evening, everyone. How
Happy
y'all
Tuesday.
doing?
Happy
Happy
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Um, as I promised y'all, right? We talked about how the women, the females, weren't loyal to the community. Now I promised you was going to have about the men. Why the men weren't loyal. So the title of this is "These Bros Ain't Loyal." We have a guest here, and I'm going to bring on momentarily. One second, I'm going to do something. Um, boop, 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 boop. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Anyway, what's how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. We here. We alive. We good. Okay. Well, I'm gonna bring our guest on right quick. And we're gonna let her introduce herself and then go into the show. Um, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you tonight?
I'm well.
We doing well. Well, I'm doing
That's
well. I can't
good.
speak for
Yeah, you
That's
can't speak for
good.
me. Don't be trying to talk for me. Don't try to do that. Introduce yourself, ma'am.
My name is Rory Duthard, and I live here in Atlanta. I guess Brookhaven would be the area of town because everybody calls every place Atlanta, but folks live in different cities. But
Mhm.
I'm glad to be on with you this evening for
Thank you.
sure.
Well, I appreciate your presence. Let me tell the people real quick how we got here. So I posted something. No, actually, a gentleman posted a question. It was about the black. How do we save our kids?
Mhm.
And Miss Rory here gave a good answer, and it coincided with what we're going to talk about this evening.
Okay.
Um, she spoke about the '80s. So before we get into what she said, I'm gonna give some context to this conversation. Um, so we're talking about these men. We're talking about black men, in particular, how they weren't loyal to the community. Now, to frame this up, we have to say we come from a place of trauma, slavery, Jim Crow, uh, uh, um, redlining, the welfare system,
Hmm.
pushing men in the household, the war, Vietnam War going on, taking men out, send them over the war, coming back with drug habits and crazy, just all kind of issues. So this country really didn't want black men, you know, for nothing to be beasts of burden in this country. So now that I said all that, okay, we cannot excuse at this moment. We're going to go into it, Miss Rory. Do you remember what your comment?
I do because the reason why I remember is because it's not the first time that I've actually said what I said
Mm,
in reference to what's going on in today's society. So basically, I take it back to the '80s and the crack cocaine era.
mhm.
I actually will be 53 in July, so I was a part of that whole. And I'm from New York originally,
Oh, you was right
so
there. When the
so
crack was popping.
that kind of says it all. I
Hmm.
mean, there's people from other large cities where they have a similar story,
Hmm.
but just being from New York, once you say that, it's like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And so what happened was, crack infiltrated, I don't like to say inner city, but the black community,
Hmm.
because we live in other cities besides the inner city,
Hmm.
so they trained us to kind of feel that way too.
Hmm.
um, and so what happened was, so it infiltrated the black community. Let's just say our parents, people who would have been our parents' age, got hooked, on crack cocaine. So what happens is they abandon their kids, try to sell their kids on the street for more drugs, whatever, the case may be.
Hmm.
They then get pregnant also being on these drugs as well. So it's kind of a double edged kind of thing.
Hmm.
So what ends up happening is the kids that they've already had have lost their parents to the streets and to drugs. And so the grandparents are now having to raise these children. And back then, even though we had teenage parents and grandparents, my grandmother was a fully grown woman. So
Right.
just imagine, a grandparent in their late 50s, early 60s having to care for small children. That's just like a generational skip there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's part of it. But then also a lot of these people that were on drugs, then had crack babies.
Hmm.
And so once you have those babies are now born, they're in the system, they have developmental and societal issues as they grow older. Just jump to late 30s, early 40s years later, those kids are now, in their late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
And so the cycle keeps continuing because they never probably got the proper help and whatever they should have gotten from being these crack babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, they can't get the jobs that, maybe some other people would get because of their development or lack thereof, things of that nature. So now these same people, their kids were raised without them. Their grandparents are, they're now dead at this point. So what ends up happening is the streets becomes their family. And then once that happens, it's a foundation of sorts, but you've kind of lost the family unit that we are all used to being raised in. And so that becomes an element. But the trick about all of this is that history keeps repeating itself. And in this case, it didn't just really repeat itself. The cycle just kept going.
Mm-hmm.
It never really stopped, So the crack baby who's now 40 years old now, maybe had other kids. And I feel like drugs for a decade or so. I just feel like anything that you put in your body, it kind of absorbs somewhere in your body to some extent. That's just my belief. I don't have any scientific proof,
No, there's scientific
kind of
proof also that
back
it
that
passes
up.
on to the kids. Now the kids have that in their body because if you look at
Exactly.
cigarettes,
Exactly.
people that smoke cigarettes have kids. Usually, the kids turn out to be cigarette smokers because that is in there. It becomes a part of their system.
You said the nicotine?
Yeah, the nicotine. Yeah. Yeah, so
So-
they build up not immunity, but they have a longing for that.
And and I always, I roll my eyes when I say it, but I say, Ronald Reagan is the gift that keeps on giving,
Mhm.
because it kind of happened on his watch for the most part in terms of, I was younger when there were other drugs, like when Nixon and other presidents were in office, but Reagan is really the person for me that I hold somewhat responsible. But then let's just take it a step further. Because what also happened in that dialogue that we had on Facebook was a gentleman, a friend of mine, Jason, who's from Queens, New York originally, said, but yes, what you're saying is true. But then we also had, like Mickey Barnes and Frank Lucas and Rick Ross and some others
Heroin.
who helped facilitate, these things and were dealers and didn't turn, they turned a blind eye. They didn't really, I can't say they didn't care because I don't know them personally, but I mean, clearly, they didn't care to the point that they wanted to stop doing what they did. They were destroying their own people. So, that's why I was like, I wanted to get the dialogue started. I always say things, not for argument's sake, but just to really get a sense of what other people are thinking. If you agree or disagree, I don't care if people disagree. Tell me why. I really just want to know from people's mindset what their thoughts are about it. It's just how that's really what needs to happen in society is we need to just have more conversations about issues that people don't want to talk about. Yeah. And that's one of them is holding Black people responsible, because it's one thing for the drugs, they came in our community, but then we didn't help matters by being drug dealers. And again, I understand it's a cycle because they probably are drug dealers because they can't get jobs because of their race or their lack of education. It's like it's a vicious cycle. So I get all of that, but it's a catch-22. And so I just really wanted to just start that dialogue. So I appreciate you inviting me here tonight.
No problem. You had something to say, and I'm gonna get to.
No, I was going to tell Rory. That's it's interesting that you say that because before we started the show, me and Willie were talking about him and his sister having a conversation, and people getting triggered and things like that. And the point I was trying, I think the show started before I was able to say it, but I was like, did she understand that it wasn't so much a battle, by you voicing difference of opinion about a subject matter? It's trying to get to a solution, like you were just speaking about. It's not about agreeing and disagreeing. It's having a conversation and then trying to figure out how do we fix this. And I think a lot of people take things to heart or take it personal when it's not that.
It's
I'm
not
attacking you. I might not agree with what you're saying, but it doesn't mean that I'm I have a negative attitude towards you. I just don't agree with, whatever statements you made. And let's take those disagreements and figure out a way that we get to a solution to fix really the problem is what we're trying to fix.
Exactly.
So the thing is, Sundays, I was telling him he didn't catch it, but I initially invited Rory to the discussion we have Sunday, and it was going to be about unity, the Black family, and everything else. And this falls, and I've been everything I'm doing is kind of falling into line with, like you said, solution based. We need to look back at the past and see what happened, where we screwed up, and get some, because these young folks, they don't know none of this stuff. Like the young folks
Right.
coming up behind us, and that's another reason I did a channel, because people coming behind us, it's gonna be lost. If I die, you die. Who gonna do
That's
this?
it.
Oh, I'm
You
gonna
know,
die. So
yeah, we gonna die. But I'm just
so
saying,
Right.
this will be forever. So the thing is, they need to know the absolute truth. Um, I'm not gonna go into the women part of it because we already did that. We did a show about that, but we're gonna talk about strictly men. And you name some names: Nikki Barnes, Rick Ross, and everything else. But I got some videos, and we're gonna play the videos. Then I want, because you were around it when this happened.
Yeah.
You were in the hot seat, right? You were in the hotbed when all this went
Right. I
down.
was a teenager
Yes,
when it
and
all
you knew,
kind of.
yeah, it hit, and you just saw the world change right
Yeah.
as it was going on. So I want to
Yeah.
get your input on these videos I'm going to play. So I got this
Okay.
first one. I titled this, "In the Beginning There Was a Rock."
As early as 1981, reports of the alleged crack epidemic began surfacing in Los Angeles. Crack rock was cheaper, purer, and easier to get than traditional cocaine, and it took lower income areas by storm. By 1983, the epidemic had taken hold of the city, turning communities into war zones. And soon, crack became a national crisis.
Today, there's a new epidemic. Smokable cocaine, otherwise known as crack. It is an uncontrolled fire.
Reagan's Anti-Drug Abuse Act imposed harsher sentences on crack than traditional cocaine use, leading to a decades-long debate that the law was unfairly targeting minorities and lower-income neighborhoods who couldn't afford the more expensive cocaine powder. Incarcerations in LA skyrocketed. By 1995, the California Department of Corrections increased its Black and Latino inmates from 21,476 to 88,376, more than a 400% increase. This led to broken families, an overblown foster care system, increased violence, and a growing skid row that crippled the nation.
Okay. So give me your thoughts first, and I'm going to say what I got to say.
I mean, all of that is accurate. The thing is, you have to go deeper.
Mhm.
Because that's what I try to get my kids to understand, is that nothing in this country was designed with us in mind.
Mhm.
It just wasn't. The welfare system, yeah, that's kind of something that's been kind of attached to Black people for the most part. That's not how that was never designed to assist us.
Mhm.
We kind of got caught up in it because as people in this country, because there was a time when that wasn't even the case.
Mhm.
But as people in this country, we have participated and taken advantage of different programs. They weren't necessarily set up to benefit us,
Mhm.
but you can't it's just like with the healthcare. We really don't have comprehensive healthcare because they don't want anything that helps us out.
Mhm.
But the thing is, we're not the only ethnic group that lives in this country and this world. So kind of by association, and by being adjacent to other ethnic groups, we get to kind of partake in different programs that are set up for them. But there's always a negative connotation. And why is it that crack, which is derived from cocaine, if we're going to break it all the way down,
Mhm.
why do you get a larger sentence for a product that was derived from the actual thing than you would from the actual thing? Like, why does the cocaine sentence is nowhere as harsh as it is for somebody who's selling or in possession of crack cocaine? But nobody, really talks about that. I mean, they do talk about it, but it just, how you just say things and then, it just kind of go on to the next thing.
Yeah, they gloss over it.
Right. They gloss over it. And that's a real thing. I'm always the one that I can make something black or white in one sentence. And my kids roll their eyes like, not everything is about race, mommy. Yeah.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It
Let me
is.
speak to something you just said. The whole thing about when they, so you went to sentence, we were talking about the difference in drugs. So the thing was that us not being equal, black and white. Okay. So the thing about that is that in this country, they didn't want to let us go. Like you said, it wasn't meant for us. But when they let us go, Now they have to face their dirty little secret. Now they have to face their little secret. So they've been, ever since they let us go, they've been doing stuff to kind of eradicate us, trying to eradicate the black family so we can kind of stop procreating, because they feared being the minority. They feared being to where we could come back and basically get our revenge, or on what they did to us during slavery. So that's been their and I'm not saying all white people. I'm saying, for most part, the people that are proud of slavery, are proud of white supremacy, are proud of different stuff, Confederacy and all the other stuff. They fear being the underclass. They fear being the minority. So, like you said, nothing is done in this country by accident. Everything is systematically done. I'm just going to throw this out here. I don't want to stick on this, but even with the feminist movement, you mentioned the welfare movement, but even with the feminist movement, it was done as a systematic way to break up the black family. And then they go to the welfare movement, so it puts the woman above the man and
And the
destabilize
man
the
out of the
family
house.
and kick the man out of the house. Yeah, but by default, the woman becomes the head of the house. The woman
Right.
becomes the head. Then we got the when they allowed the Civil Rights Act to come through, they put the Title VII, which allowed the women, double minority, to get hired and have more money than the man. And that's what we have now with that crack epidemic. Now men can't feed their family. Men can't be men, actual men. We can't compare to the white man and no other race. So now they put drugs in the community. Okay, you want to feed your family? Here, take this crack. And now it puts us in a position now, I got you. You couldn't do Jim Crow no more. So now, I got you. We gonna give you sentences. We throwing out football numbers for a little rock. So
Well, interestingly enough, I say it's no longer Jim Crow, it's James Crow now,
they
because Jim
brushed up.
Crow is all grown up
Uh-huh.
and he's doing some big things.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's kind of like my running joke where, yes, James Crow. It's
Mm.
formal now because
Yeah.
it's hidden. You can't tell that they've taken off the white hoods and now they're wearing white shirts.
Mm-hmm.
And
With
in their
suit tie.
corporate spaces and other places. The word, I think, Will, that you were looking for, you didn't know you were looking for it, was genocide.
Yeah. It's planned. It's planned, and
There's
genocide.
different ways, because you think about a word like genocide, you
Mm.
think of one specific way that can take place, and they found numerous
Mhm.
ways over
Yep.
the course of history, which is why, for the folks that don't even know what critical race theory means, that you ask them to define it, they look at you like a deer in the headlights.
Mhm.
But because basically what it comes down to is, that you don't want your kids to find out that your parents and grandparents might have been some of them folks spitting at black people
Mhm.
during the civil rights movement, that are on video and in photos,
Mhm.
because some of those folks are still alive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just like the lady that accused Emmett Till, she's still alive, and they won't do nothing with her. Like, they know she lied. It caused a young boys to die. It caused a chain of events, and this young kid died, like, brutally. He was brutally beaten and died, and they
We
won't
won't
they won't
forget
even.
his
Yeah.
casket, the open
No.
casket.
No.
We
Yeah.
won't ever forget
Well,
that.
it's at the African American Museum. My son just came from DC actually
Okay.
last week, and well, this is the second time seeing it, but they saw
Yeah.
that, the whole
Yeah.
school, they got to see it. But thing with that is that, you know, if you look over in Germany, Nazi Germany, we will go if we find a general over there that, oh yeah, we found somebody that was, you know,
A war
that was
criminal.
guilty of being, crimes against war.
Mm-hmm.
They will prosecute that person today if they're 80, 90 years old. They will do that.
Yeah, we've seen it
We've
in
seen it in our
mid
lifetime. Yeah.
90s.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can get this work.
Mhm. But this lady, we know what she did.
Mhm.
We know everything. We know it was a lie. We know her husband and her brothers and everybody committed a murder, but they're not touching her. They're not giving her anything. They're not even
Was any-
looking at
was anybody ever charged with this murder?
her. Yeah, but they were dead. I think it wasn't correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't a husband that dead when they finally just said, "Oh yeah, he's
He
he's
did.
guilty of murder," but he was dead.
Gotcha.
So they never actually made anybody pay for
Yeah.
his murder.
Yeah. It
Let me
just,
jump in here real
that's
quick.
why it always triggers me. And this is kind of getting off topic, but I just want to say this briefly.
Good.
When women accuse men of crimes that they didn't commit, because it just changes the chain of events that comes from that, especially like rape.
Mhm.
Like, that just, you know, you can't come
from that.
back from that, because once that's out there, even if they find that she lied,
You're
this,
gonna
the
be
first
considered
story
correct.
is what's going to stick.
Mhm.
Right.
And not only that, now you've got your family members and friends and whoever that now want to hunt this person down and do harm to them for something that they didn't do. So
Yep.
I believe that anybody who, you know, accuses somebody of a crime they didn't commit, once it's found out to be false, they need to be charged and arrested
Yeah.
With that same crime,
with that
equal
same,
value,
whatever the
equal value.
penalty
They
is.
should, but
that
you very rarely see it though. You
and I know, but you know, we say we got to start somewhere. There's so many, you know, and you know, and justice is a slow process. Fam, for 400 and some odd years, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Come on now,
it's
come on, how
super
slow?
slow. Like
Yeah,
at some point,
yeah.
when it comes to us, we, you know, that's kind of the speech and the cliches that we're fed. But when it comes to other ethnic groups, when something happens, the action is swift.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to us, you know, it's, well, like the Civil Rights Act, it's an act.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a law.
Yeah.
The Voting Rights Act, it's not a law. So they have to keep voting on it. Hence, we're in the midst
Mm-hmm.
of that now. Why are these things not laws on the books that if there's any harm doing or if there's a violation of these laws, that there's penalties to be levied? Why you I mean, you know, you have to really think about these things. People don't want to get deep
Mm-hmm.
because they're comfortable. And I say this a lot, and again, nobody's really disagreed with me, but I think there are a lot of Black people, myself included, who are comfortable in the white supremacy of it all. Let
No.
me explain.
Yeah. The
And
privilege.
okay, so you
The privilege.
because I
Yeah.
feel now as a grown person, I didn't know this for the longest time because I'm a kid and then I'm a teenager and I'm not seeing the same stuff our parents and grandparents might have saw and experienced. But as an adult, I can fully say to you that I feel like desegregation was one of the worst things that could have happened to Black people.
I agree fully. I wholeheartedly agree. You had a point before you lose it.
Oh well, we kind of went off to the side, but I was going to get in there and talk about the whole the crack thing. I know you mentioned Ronald Reagan, and I'm gonna look at it from a different angle because this is what the problem is. Instead of us policing ourselves in society, we always look to leadership. So what they did was they turned to the government and said, this crack thing is a problem, do something about it. And hence why they got these laws to where crack is now more dangerous or carries a heavier penalty than just your regular cocaine. If you even listen to the reporter talk about it, he was completely wrong about talking about it being a pure form of cocaine because it's very little cocaine,
very low cocaine,
very little cocaine in actual crack. But that's just the ignorance of people who didn't deal with it. So, but we put these people in charge of policing it, and so what they do, we'll just make it a heavier penalty if they're dealing with this because this is the hot topic right now, and that's the problem. We have to stop turning the government to fix our problems because that's what you get right there. You get these sentences, you get this. How long that's been going on when people have been getting, like you said, football numbers for crack cocaine?
That's since 88 mid
40
80s.
years.
Yeah.
40 years.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. But that came from us turning to the federal government saying, "Ooh, fix this problem," when we should have been policing ourselves.
So what that is, look at the pharmacy industry. They're going to give you the disease and they're going to sell you the
cure. Or not even the cure. They're going to sell you
to maintain.
Yeah.
So that's the exact structure.
Because they have the cure.
Yeah, they have the cure.
You do know this.
Of course, yes. Cancer, yeah, of course. But that's what it is. It's the same. If you look at any kind of business, it's ran that way. We cannot give you anything to fix what you got going on.
It's called
we
capitalism.
Have to, yeah, it's called capitalism.
It's called
You're
capitalism.
right.
And I don't have a problem with capitalism because it affords a lot of people the opportunity to move up in society. But you have to know what's taking place. That's when
being unethical. Being unethical in capitalism is
when
the
you
issue.
don't know that you're being taken advantage of. Then I think it's a problem. But we got to educate ourselves. We got to be aware of what's going on and why it's going on. But like you said, these drug companies, that's all you see. If you look at any kind of TV program, 4 out of the 5 commercials is going to be a drug. Whether it's I'm not going to start naming them because people are going to
they're going to go look it up. Oh, I need that right there. Let me
the heart. They think I'm
plugging
fun.
Plugging, right.
Black
but
male,
no, we've seen them all.
It's not
We've
Right.
being
seen them
funded by
all, so
any
we
pharmacy
know.
But when you, but I mean, just, and a lot of people you don't even give it a second thought.
Mm.
It's now it's buried in your subconscious,
Mhm.
and you start questioning, do I have this? Do I, is
Yeah.
this what's wrong with me? But if you pay attention to commercial TV, and you will see the majority of the commercials are either about drugs, or somebody selling you some kind of fast food or something like
Mm.
that. It's interesting, but that's capitalism.
Mhm.
And we have allowed the corporations really to take over our government
Yeah.
and our
Oh yeah.
society.
Oh yeah.
So.
Definitely.
It's a subtle brainwashing.
Oh, it's
Mhm.
not subtle.
Yeah. It's no.
It's
You
a
know,
brain. Yeah,
you're right.
It's not
You know,
covert
it's
no more. It
it's
used to be covert. It's not
not
covert
right.
subtle
no
at
more.
all. But
Exactly.
you have to know that's what's taking place. It's because if you just go along and don't question it, then you look down the road 20 years. Oh man, why do I think this way? This is the program that you've been fed the last 20 years. It's not subtle, but you have to be aware that it's taking place. If you don't know, then you go along to get along.
And I think that's kind of what I was saying. For those of us who know it's not subtle, then it's not subtle.
Mhm.
But we've got a whole section of society that doesn't want to know, doesn't care to know, doesn't
Yeah.
know.
Let me
Just,
say this. Okay, so I came up around the same time. You're a little older than me, but
hmm
I still experienced that whole crack epidemic
right.
thing. And for me, growing up, drugs was just a no-no because we saw what drugs did to people. When I was growing up, if you smoked weed, you was a
Yeah. You
junkie.
was junkie. Yeah.
You
Just
was a
weed.
junkie.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
it's acceptable. It's
Mm.
cool. Everybody's talking about it. It's legal
Mm.
in the large portion of the United States now. As far as the state goes, I don't know if the federal
hmm
government has done away with the law yet, but that was the impact. I saw what families and people went through because of crack, and it made me, I didn't want to have anything to do with any kind of drug. But like you said, that generation after us, they
Yeah.
missed
They
that.
yeah. No. No.
And so
It was
now drug,
lost. It was
it doesn't have that
same effect.
what you call that negative connotation with
Mhm.
it now with a lot of these kids. Whereas
Right.
for me, when you hear the word drugs, it was just automatically bad. Say no to drugs, or what they just say,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
say
Just
no.
to know.
Just
Dare.
say,
They also
oh,
had a
yeah.
dare
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, but not just that, but I saw it firsthand what it did, what people were doing, how people live because of crack cocaine.
So let's segue. I got two videos, right? Real quick clips, because you said about that the effects of what people were doing, right? So these two clips, I'm gonna do it back to back. Hold on one sec.
A woman who allegedly smoked crack cocaine just hours before giving birth has been charged with giving the drug to her unborn child. Kimberly Hardy of Muskegon, Michigan, faces charges of second-degree child abuse and delivering cocaine. She could be sentenced to 24 years in prison. 10 similar cases have gone to trial in the United States this year. Only one ended with a conviction. Police in Kansas City, Missouri are searching.
Yeah, must be pretty.
24 years.
The other one they pull up. Hold on a sec.
Police in Kansas City, Missouri are searching this morning for a woman who swapped her infant son for $20 worth of crack cocaine. The 4-month-old boy was turned over to social workers after being left in a bar while his mother smoked crack outside. The crack dealer admits that the baby was part of the transaction.
She didn't want it. She didn't want it. I don't care about that. It's just the idea that the baby would have been, somewhere instead in her hands.
Police say they've identified the baby's mother but have not been able to find her.
Yeah, that's some of the things that we've allowed, and like I said, go back to the title. Not being loyal to the community. These brothers that sold crack, that sold our community. Basically for personal gain. If you want to have it, let's call it selling your soul to the devil. That's what he's done. Go ahead, Rory.
Here's an interesting, it just hit me. And I've actually have known people that have done what that lady did back in the day.
Mhm.
Have family members that were affected, friends, all of that. But what's
Mhm.
interesting is just now what kind of hit me, a correlation
Mhm.
where she was selling her baby for $20.
Mm-hmm.
When we were slaves, we were seen as property. We were worth more than $20 as
Yep.
property.
Mm-hmm.
It just hit me, just kind of the number, the amount, of the two. It was that, I mean, from the beginning, there's been so many cycles of things that have happened to us and that we've participated in. I used to have some sense of hope that things would change, but as each generation goes by, it just becomes more difficult for me to believe that, because we've now, and I don't speak for, I don't know all children, in the age group my kids are in,
Mhm.
but I just, their level of concern and care and knowledge is so much different than ours. We had stories that were passed down from, generations of people that we carried and that were told to us. And that art of storytelling has just gone away. And so there's no sense of self or knowledge. It's about, and I'm generalizing, so please forgive me.
Oh, no, no, go
There's
ahead,
other,
because we can
but
draw something
can
from
we,
your
can,
generalizations.
right? But being on social media and how many likes can I get, and and how many subscribers, and things of that nature. Now again, I'm generalizing, it's not all the
Mhm.
children,
No.
but the mindset, as a whole, I think, is so consumed with that type of stuff. It's very a microwavable kind of generation, if you will.
Mhm.
Confidence to me is the biggest enemy. I mean, competition and comparison is the biggest enemy to confidence to me.
Mhm.
So if I'm trying to, be an influencer on social media, but I'm looking at somebody else who's got 1 million followers, now I'm trying to figure out how to do that, and I'm selling my soul and losing myself in the process,
Mhm.
Right.
and without any care as to what would my mother and my father think,
Mhm.
because that was always what my parents told me, is when you leave this house, make sure that you are a reflection of us
Correct.
wherever you go. And that was just what it was,
Mhm.
and I don't think that, like, and I spoke about that too in the post on Facebook, was that I give my kids a look and they are like, oh yes ma'am, we're not okay.
Mhm.
Between me and their dad, he's a huge dude. He's 6'3", 250 something plus pounds. If I
Mhm.
say to them, I'm gonna tell your dad, even now when I say it, they know I'm joking, but they really be like, yeah, don't tell him please, because we don't
Yeah.
we don't want no problems.
Mhm.
And they're 28, 22, and 18. It's just something that's been instilled, and there's a lot of traditions from the old school. You can't really beat your kids now in the same fashion in which we did. There's other tools and things we can do.
Mhm.
For some of these kids, they do need a good one though. I'ma just say it.
No,
But
no, I agree.
overall,
Yeah.
there's other ways and things that you can do. Because I also think that these other generations that came after us are not as strong as we are either. I
No.
think for me, I always say I have one foot in the old school way and then a one foot in the millennial kind of, because I got to know what the kids are doing. Molly is not just a girl's name. That's also a
It's a
drug.
drug. Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
you know what I mean? When they talking about all these different things, and I'm like, what is that? I got to be hip
Yeah.
and put my ear to the door when they talking to their friends. I'm ear hustling. Yep, I'm ear hustling because I need to know.
Right.
So
And I
so let
have
me
both of those worlds.
and that's what you just said is important, right? We in our age range, our age cohort is the bridge to that, from that old world to the new
Yeah.
world. And
Mm-hmm.
what usually happens, and you said this a bunch of times, what usually happens is the parents don't, instead of doing what you're doing, right, using this information to kind of police the situation, trying to, mold this kid to get away and do all this other stuff,
Right.
they'll end up doing what you said about parents doing the same thing the kids doing, be on
Right.
TikTok doing the same thing the
Right.
kids doing, trying to be the kids' friends and stuff, because they can, have
Exactly.
one foot in that world. It's like, okay, I want to be more relatable to
Right.
these younger generation versus trying to teach, using this to teach the young generation. So, that's where I think, a lot of us and, parents in our age range screw up at and have failed at.
Yeah. It's the psychology involved.
Mhm.
If you ever listen to a famous person talk about, that's like the greatest rush in the world is being famous,
Yeah.
being
Mhm.
for people to
Yeah.
recognize you. And that's what happens in these different social media platforms. Those likes, people, paying attention to your TikTok. And the parents, like you say, the parents are just falling in line. They actually doing what the kids doing. They fall in line with the kids and they want that same fame, because now we talk about it all the
Mhm.
time. It's no longer about us, it's about the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But everybody is so self-centered.
Yeah.
We all thinking about, ooh, what can I get? What can I do? I want to get more likes. I'm
Right.
not thinking about the long picture. Now, if you're doing something to promote the future for the younger generation, that's one
That's
thing.
one.
But
Yeah.
when it's self-centered, like you say, you on what is it, TikTok
Mhm.
dancing or whatever the case may be, it's that, and that's like you said, it's not, to me, it's not subtle, but that's part of the brainwashing that's taking place. These different apps, they are robbing people of their time
Mm.
for free. They don't get it because you think it's free because you don't pay for the app. They are
Right.
have consumed your mind
Mm.
to the point
Mhm.
that they can advertise you. Where they can sell you anything on these apps, and they have all your time occupied right there to where you do whatever the thing that the cool thing is to do.
So what you're speaking about is something I talked about Sunday, or something that we've talked about before, is the fact that we've had a show that said, what killed us, kind of killing our community, is individualism, right? The
Mhm.
whole thing of individualism. Sunday, I made an analogy that I never thought of. It just came to me while I was talking to the gentleman and the young lady, was that we're building a foundation on individuals, which is a bunch of pebbles. If you build a house on a
Mhm.
bunch of pebbles, what's going to
Right.
happen to the house?
Gonna fall.
Right.
It's not a concrete slab. So that's why I said about the unity. That's why I started focusing on unity, because this was going to take for us to try to build this community. And also the fact that, everybody is standing on the backs of our ancestors that bled, that cried, that died in
Yeah.
this country. The blood that this country has in its soil from our ancestors, we are
Listen.
failing them.
Yeah.
To be we fought to be integrated into something and only to be separated from each other.
Right.
You know, that
Right.
is crazy. It's crazy. But nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear this message, right? Nobody wants to hear this message. They want to be entertained.
Mhm.
And like you said about, people want to be famous and it's doing, they're not pushing this message. I won't do that. What I want to do, I want to have this message. People that have it, they can come here
Right.
and listen to it. But, it's here. So,
Let me just say
frustrating.
something real quick because I don't want to,
But
sound like I'm a hypocrite. I
mhm,
take full advantage of social media.
mhm,
Oh
I've
yeah.
done not a lot, but my daughter be like, "Mommy, come do this TikTok with me." It's fun, it's cute, and I'll do it. I don't like with me, I bartend, so I use it for that, for my business, but I'm not on TikTok kind of, doing all the little videos and skits because it just takes up too much time and I'm doing other things. Um, so I don't it's one of those things where I don't, it's fun for the kids and for those who are doing it, but don't let that be the only thing. I think is kind of more my message as well. Because you don't want to take fun away
Oh
from,
yeah.
no, it's about balance. We're
what's
not saying
right.
it's
It is
bad.
about
It's just about
balance.
balance.
It's
Yeah.
And I
it's
don't want to sit here and act
Yeah.
like I've never
No,
been on TikTok. I
no,
didn't
no,
want to kind of give that message. But
no.
I'm just saying, you have to have balance. You also can't be your kid's friend all the time too. But what I wanted to really get at in that comment was I think a lot of us are reliving our young adulthood.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
for a lot of people, they may have been caring for kids
Hmm.
Right.
at that time. And so they
Right.
lost a lot of the active part of their life where they went out with friends and they were free to do whatever without having to care for children and that type of thing. And I think that this second chapter of their life, for a lot of us who have kids that are older and won't burn the house down if
Mhm.
they didn't have proper supervision,
Yeah.
we're trying to live our best life, if you will. And so in doing that, they're doing a lot of the things you see on the other kids doing on TikTok. And and I will say this also, just because it's out there doesn't mean everybody should be doing it,
Right.
if
Right.
that makes what I mean.
Oh, it makes
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Perfect.
perfect sense. But
but
let me,
who am I to judge? I'm just, it's one of those things also where I feel like a lot of people don't like who they are.
So,
I've
so
had that
I'm
discussion
gonna, I'm
too,
gonna
and
let you say
nobody
something. But
wants to have
I
that.
want to say something about the whole "who am I to judge." So the whole thing about us, because we lost community, because we lost standards, because we lost values and morals, right? At some point, we have to get to the point where we do judge.
yeah.
It's hurting everybody. We're gonna have to
Right.
get to the point where we say, "Well, pardon me for judge." No,
It's not judgment.
no, damn that. If it's wrong, we need to start saying it's wrong.
Right.
If it's hurting us, we need to say it's
Yeah.
hurting us. That's
Well,
that's
no,
the
I
first step
agree.
of that's the first step. Like when you go to therapy, whatever. When you go to therapy and try to get over whatever the issue is, you have to pinpoint what the issue is before you can grow and move on.
It's like an
For
addiction.
So
sure.
yeah, that's addiction.
If you're an alcoholic, you have to admit
Yeah,
to being an
yeah.
alcoholic. If you're a drug addict, you have to admit to being. As long as you pretend that you don't have a problem, then
Mhm.
nothing gets
That just
fixed.
gets fixed. Yeah.
But to get back to what you were saying about the social media thing, I'm he'll tell you I didn't touch social media, but it is very valuable, especially in the business aspect. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be on there,
Right.
but it used to be a separation, because what you're talking about as far as living that second childhood or whatever, this always has happened, but the adults were always separated from the kids. I remember, my family would get together and adults would be off somewhere doing what adults do,
Right.
and we as kids would be doing our own thing, but we
Yeah.
never partied in the same atmosphere. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm getting at, because we've blurred the lines between
Yeah.
what adults do and what children do. And today, this is the first time that those two generations are pretty much into the same thing when it comes to music,
Yeah.
uh, how they dress,
Dress,
even
Mhm.
how they carry themselves. Everybody's doing the exact same thing. So it's a blurred line between adolescence and adulthood, because adults have always, once they got those kids, like you said, where they couldn't burn down the house, they always went off and did their own thing, but it was with
Yeah.
adults, and it was completely different from what their kids were into. Whereas now, they pretty much, you can plug in child or adult in any situation, and it fits right in the society we have today.
Well, I will also say again, Will, part of the conversation that came up,
Mhm.
one of my comments was, and again, not everybody, because I don't know everybody, but there's a large majority of parents that are only 15 to 18 years older than their children.
Yeah.
I'm one of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And so, and again, so I don't know your story. I don't know how you and your parents, how y'all, kind of coexist and what type of relationship you have. But for a lot of people
Somebody
who
smoke
had
crack.
these kids young, I think also generationally, the generation your parents had you in, that wasn't happening. We wasn't this like the stuff we're seeing now where,
Yep.
like, say if my daughter who's 28, if she had a child that's 12, that means that she would have had her when she was 16. They would be coexisting on Snapchat and TikTok together. Whereas back in our day, we didn't have social media.
True.
So there wasn't any of those things kind of, to worry about.
And that gets back to the kind of the judgment thing. It was a sense of shame then. So it happened. We people think that it didn't happen then, but it happened. But I guess you can quote unquote cover it up. Oh, that's your aunt. That's not your mother. That's your sister.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that a lot.
And that's what happened to you. But I think that's wrong too, because you grow up thinking somebody is your sister, and you turn out and it's your mother. So it's a thin line and it's a fine line, but it's an issue that has to be addressed. But you're
Right.
exactly right, because now, I think about it all the time. My oldest daughter, I have 4 grandkids, but it's hard for me to have a good relationship with my grandkids, because we still doing the same. I'm still raising my other kids along with her raising her 4 kids. So trying to transition to being a grandparent at the same time is hard. I have a very little time to spend with grandkids, because I'm still trying to raise my kids. We're doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
So, that's just something I have to deal with because of the decisions I made, growing up.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
So now that we talked about kids watching the parents and doing whatever, I got another video based on a kid doing actually the parent put this kid on. The kid couldn't make a decision, but anyway, watch the video.
In Houston, a woman who
Watch
used
the
her
video.
3-year-old daughter as a go-between to sell crack to undercover cops has been sentenced to life in prison. The jury foreman called the sentence a message to Houston's drug dealers.
Fresh evidence, if any, is needed of just how vicious the nation's drug plague is. Police in Texas videotaped someone selling crack cocaine who's barely old enough to spell it. James Hattori has the story and the pictures of the cocaine kid.
Houston police were shocked when a 3-year-old girl approached an undercover officer at a suspected drug house Tuesday, then proceeded to sell him 2 dime rocks of crack cocaine. The officer, who asked that we not show his face, says the little girl was acting as a go-between.
I told her 2 dimes. The mother had the little girl put the dope in the little girl's hand, and the little girl came over and brought me the dope.
I don't know how she had it in her hand. But we was over there playing domino, and there wasn't nobody selling drugs.
Police arrested the girl's 58-year-old grandmother and 22-year-old mother. They took 4 children into protective custody. Drugs are apparently a family affair. The little girl's father is in prison for dealing, and she told police her grandmother kept the stash.
Rock.
That's rock?
Hey, Grandma.
The grandma's? You know what grandma does with them? What she do with them?
Keep them in a bag.
She keeps them in her bag?
Somebody, oh, they all be coming.
They all be coming? They give her money for them?
We're outraged, we're infuriated that this situation exists. That someone involved in the drug trafficking would utilize a small child.
Police seized 6 handguns, 40 rocks of cocaine, and $1,000, enough to file charges today against the mother and grandmother. Without that evidence, police say their prime suspect would have been a 3-year-old girl whose only crime was minding her mother. James Hattori, CBS News, Dallas.
Okay, Miss Rory, have you seen anything like that? It's atrocious, is that?
Now, I don't remember, a child of that age selling any drugs, but there were children that were young selling drugs, not her age, but, 10, 11 and up for sure. It just, and also the village is gone. I mean, the village is gone. And like I call them the village people have all died.
Mm-hmm.
And so once grandma died, the family dispersed. We didn't gather for holidays because grandma's house was where everything was, where the action was at. That's where we gathered for everything. Just even seeing that story, and that was from 21 years ago. I'm thinking, where's that little girl now? Like, I'm just in my mind where her grandmother's probably dead at this point, but where's her mother? She's still in jail, I guess, because she got life.
Yeah, she got life. Yeah, she's probably in jail.
So, it just, so this little girl who was 3, so she's 24 now.
No, that wasn't 20. That's 8. What is 86? This happened. So that's
okay. So that video said 1991.
Oh, it's 91. Well, that's not 20. No, 91. That's 30. That's 30
30 years.
Yeah, so that's 31 years ago.
30. She's 34.
30, like that. And that's the thing that I always think about is, so remember I'm talking about crack babies. So the crack babies now in their late 30s, early 40s. Like, what I wonder what their lives are like now. What because that's the cycle that we're wondering, did the cycle break or did it continue? Because once you see a behavior, if that's a learned behavior now, that's in you.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so where does this, where does the break happen in the cycle? Like how does that happen?
Right.
I'm wondering, as a 34-year-old, what her life is like right now.
And I was just gonna say, look at the people who were around her at the time. You had, normally, like you said, you could turn to your grandmother, and she had some discipline. She was gonna set you straight, but her grandmother was part of the problem.
The queen pin.
There's a grandma rock. Grandma rocks.
She was the queen pin.
Yeah, queen. Yeah.
I mean,
it was grandma's rocks, and she give them to the people. So you got your grandmother and your mother involved in that. So if the grandmother is doing that, even though they went to jail or whatever, whoever else was left was probably
she probably went to state custody.
You think so?
Possibly. I mean, if everybody,
the dad was in jail.
The dad was in jail.
The mother got life in prison. Usually, the next of kin, which is the grandmother. That's, and so look at, she the queen pin.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
But the thing is, what breaks the system, right? And I can say this from like viewing other, not as bad as this, but you have to hate your situation, that you were in, that you put in, because she didn't know what she was doing, so let's say she went to, let's just imagine that she went to the system, right? She had to hate the fact that she was in this system, and the reason she got put there because of drugs. Possibly her life could have turned out,
maybe, but she would have had to learn that.
Yeah, she would have learned that, but she knows she wasn't. There wasn't no system, wasn't no parents though.
Yeah, she knew it wasn't her parents, but at the same time, she would have to be able to put to it, why is my life right here, and then have to go back and say, well, my mom did this, which is very difficult if nobody's gonna come to you and then try to teach you that. So that's a hard cycle to break in that. I think that particular family, look at that, and that's just a microcosm of many families in the United States.
Right.
That's a very hard cycle to break when you're surrounded by a negative influence. So.
Negative everywhere, and like you said, it's pretty much the inner cities where they did this, where it was a tight concentration of black folks. They didn't want it, and so this just to frame this up. This is my theory, right? They created a problem to where they put black people in the ghettos, but they had to take care of black people because the fathers were in the household. Now, how we do it? Oh, we got to kill off the people that was draining the economy. So we got to kill them off by putting drugs and poison into their system. So we're trying to keep on chasing trying to fix a problem we created. You know, and now they create a different problem. We're not gonna get in that. We'll get in this another show, but we created a different problem. We'll speak on this. But now they're gonna try to fix that. So
I just
we
want
as
to say
black
one more
people.
thing.
Go ahead.
And I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
no,
it just, as I think about the young lady who's now 34 years old, so her situation and what happened in her family, that family dynamic is the perfect example of why we're in the situation we're in now in this country in 2022. Why the question was asked in the beginning on Facebook, how can we help these kids? Because just imagine this young lady, if she's 34 now, if she was in the system, not that it would have happened, but maybe she was in the system and got pregnant at 16 or 17.
Yeah.
So now her child would be 17 or 18 now. Say if she was in Atlanta, so her child would be one of these kids that could possibly be out in the street doing all the stuff that caused the gentleman to ask the question on Facebook in the first place. And that's that, like literally this is the visual possibility and the answer to the man's question of how can we help? How did it get to this point? We see an example of how.
As long as we worry about individual, we don't see all that what you just said because we're focused on ourselves. We don't see all this going on around us. We don't see none of that.
We don't want to deal with it because we've dealt with so much. Like when all the videos and anything about slavery or the civil rights movement comes on PBS, I would rather lick my cat on her head. Like I promise you, watch paint dry in the corner of my living room than to watch any of that.
But it's
necessary.
We can't hide from
it.
Yes, we need it. Yeah. We can't hide from our past. I think that's the reason why we can't change, because everybody's trying to hide from what happened.
It's
if you
so
keep on sweeping stuff under the rug, sweep under the rug, you're gonna have a big pile of crap under the rug, and then eventually it's gonna have to get clean. And it's either somebody gonna force you to do it, or you're gonna do it yourself. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna be forced to do it at some point. At some point,
that's where we are now.
Yeah, but I'm saying for the whole community, because the thing is, when it gets so bad, and this is how it can look. It gets so bad that the kids are just totally out of control. Not even making the parents pay a hefty fine, or parents start going to jail for it. Now the kids don't have anybody to really, set stuff straight. Now we have some kind of form of slavery back again in mass, right? We got some kind of form of slavery for majority of people, and we're not going to be able to do anything about that at that point. We're just going to have to sit there and take it and eradicate. Like everything, I don't even know like how that's going to look to fix that once it gets to that point. Right now, we have some kind of way of communicating with each other and maybe trying to fix it within whoever's in the earshot. But when it gets to that point, there's nothing that's going to be able to help us. I mean, and I hate to say that, but it's really not.
But if there's no money involved to benefit us, a lot of folks don't want to do it. Like money has just taken over. The love of money is the root of all evil. We've heard this. And just people don't want to rock whatever boat they're in. They don't want to have to do the work. And here's something else that I think is interesting. We want reconciliation and recognition and reparations from this country for all that they've done to us, which is, we should have that thought. But in addition to that, we need to have truth and reconciliation with each other.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Because not everything that happened to us was done by white folks and the government and so forth and so on. And if we want them to fix it. We want them to pay us. We want them to do this, that, and the third. Clearly, that's not going to happen.
Right.
In the form in which a lot of us were wanting it. But we also need to start telling the truth when it comes to our immediate families. We like to mind other people's business. How about you start in your house first? Before you go trying to tell somebody else how to do things,
right,
and what to do. Like a lot of people don't want to. Like me, I'll come to your house, wash all your dishes, fold all your laundry. It'll be a week for me doing that in my own house, because when you go to somebody else's house, it's you're trying to be helpful and it's not your own stuff. So you can manage that and care for it in a different way. But when it comes to your own stuff, people don't want to deal with that because they're not comfortable with who they are as a person. We look in the mirror to fix our clothes and our hair and our, makeup and everything else, but we don't look in the mirror to see who we really are.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
You are perfect analogy.
That's a great, it's a great. I used to tell people all the time, like you go to these different neighborhoods. I know I grew up in DeKalb County, and I was like, why is there so much, trash on the street? And they start talking about white people and the government and everything. But I'm like, nobody's bringing this trash over here. We're putting this trash, but we don't want to look at the fact, or people's houses are being broken into in a neighborhood. That's most likely somebody's family member in that subdivision who's doing these crimes, and the people who live there know that they're doing it, but we refuse to accept it and deal with it. We just allow it to keep going on until because
we enable it.
It's not if they breaking in everybody else's house, they're not breaking in mine because it's my son doing it.
Right.
So, but we have to start looking in that mirror and being, like you said, being honest with who we are and what we see.
So what when y'all talking about this, right? What I thought about is the whole thing that Black people try to do. They try to do things like the government was talking about doing, the trickle down effect, right? We're gonna look at the government and think the government's gonna fix stuff at the very bottom. It would we should be getting strong at the bottom, getting our base stronger, and then we could force the government do. That's the answer to it. Is unity is the answer, but we won't do that. We won't see it that like, oh yeah, somebody's gonna save us, God's gonna save us, the government's gonna save us. Instead of looking within yourself to reach out to other people and say, hey, let's do this, let's get together, take a page from other communities that's doing well. No, this is what you do. Take a page from the Jewish community. You take a page from the Jewish community. They don't speak on. You speak something in public about the Jewish community, hell and brimstone, fire and brimstone,
down.
Shut everything down. But
shut down.
Because we won't do what we need to do, unify, we don't have that kind of power. We will never have that kind of power.
Just think
And
about
we're the strongest. Like,
yes.
I mean,
but we're so strong that we want to butt heads against each other.
Everybody wants to be the head Negro in charge. And I'll just give you a perfect example. The three of us can start a business. We're like-minded individuals, but we're going to disagree about something along the way because we're not perfect people, and we all should have, differing opinions because we're human. But we're like, if you say to me, Will, I think we should try this because I've done my work, or, I have a feeling that this, we should go this way with it. The three of us can agree to do that. If there was a fourth person in the group, they would be the one that always had an issue with everything we would do just because it wasn't their own idea.
Yeah.
The idea doesn't have to come from me. I trust you and you, sir, enough to be like, if you bring it to me, I'm not going to shoot it down. I might have some, reservations and some concerns, but we discuss and we see, okay, you know what? I'm not really sure about this, but the fact that you feel so adamant about it, let's go with that.
Or you can even build on the idea to where, okay, this is the flaw I see in this idea. So how can we fix this flaw? And then now the three brains come together and said, okay, that is a flaw.
We don't have the comprehensive maturity.
We don't.
That's the only way I can describe it. To be. That's why there's a lot of small businesses, Black-owned small businesses, owned by individuals, because to be in partnership, it's going to be a problem. And the thing is, so you're in business by yourself, you try to get funding, you got hills to climb in that area, from the people who are giving the funds, and then from your own people. Like, for Black folks, to me, we can't, the lack of trust is from so many different groups, we just can't trust anybody, and I think that's unfortunate, because when we say it be your own people, sometimes, I mean, that really just hurts me to my core, because if nothing else, we should be able to rely and lean on each other. And we throw each other under the bus like we bowling. Like we rear back with that arm and we go swinging and we just throw each other under the bus. And it's all because it goes back to, you don't like yourself, and hurt people hurt people. There's so many different things that are going on with us as to why we treat people the way we do and how we operate in life. And it's a lot to unpack. It really is. And, you know, we're only one person. But hopefully these dialogues, if people see them, they might want to start something of their own, you know, and just kind of keep it going that way. That's the hope. I mean, I weep for humanity a lot because I've had a, you know, I just don't see the brighter day that we all are hoping for and talking about. I just don't see it.
Well, you know what? I think it's out there. Unfortunately, what's being fed to us in society is the negative. I mean, because it's not very hard for me to find, you know, like-minded people who are looking to uplift, and you know, it's not, but that's just not what you see in general, like in your different media outlets. You don't see that. But in my community, in the people that I deal with, for the most part, we all want to are pretty positive and want to see people do better, at least on the outside, you know.
Right.
And want to see people, you know, achieve and do better. You know, uh people, man, you talk about this all the time. I don't know any deadbeat dads.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know any guys who don't take care of their kids.
Right.
But I mean, it's nonstop. You hear that throughout in all the media outlets. But all the guys I know, they take care. I mean, and not just take care of them. They are real fathers. They spend time with their children. They coach them up, or whatever the case may be. They're there. So it's not a facade. They are real parents. You
Yeah.
know, but if you look, like I said, in the different media outlets, you hear about the absent father, or you know, dads that are not around. I just don't know those people. So I think we're there. We just got to somehow get that message out so people can see it a little bit more often, because it's not being seen. But I know it's out there because that's what I deal with. Yeah.
But yeah, but the reason why, and I kind of agree with the sister. The reason why I think it's not going to happen, because we're fighting against a machine that's constantly working day, night.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like I agree with you that there are a lot of people there.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, they don't scream as loud as the negative.
don't.
They don't scream. So if you're not being vocal, you might as well not be there.
And not just they don't.
You
scream,
might as well not be there. So
But let's be honest, nobody wants to see. Nobody is looking at YouTube to see somebody driving down the street doing 45 miles per hour in the 45 mile per hour zone. They want to see the car accident. They
Yeah.
want to see the
I agree.
crash. So if you're doing the right thing and trying to uplift, a lot of people that's not entertaining. And that's where we are now in society. We want
Yeah.
to be entertained by everything.
Yeah.
And so even if it is out there, people are well, you know, I can go back to that anytime.
anytime.
I can go back to that
forget
vanilla
about
stuff.
it. Yeah,
Let
forget
me go
about
see the guy who ran off the side of the cliff. You know, nobody wants to see that.
agree.
Just the regular. You know, they want that accident. They want the outlandish. So, and that's why you see people. I mean, some of the stuff they doing now on social media is just it's overboard.
Yeah, foolishness. It's
It's
sensationalized.
but it's just
ignorance.
it's to get
Right.
that attention though. That's because you become numb to it. Just I'm gonna take some y'all gotta excuse my analogy, but I'm gonna take something like porn. It was a time when porn was you had to go seek it out, you had to go find it.
Right.
So now it's right here in your face. So now it's not taboo anymore. So nobody cares about porn. They done moved on to now they get into stuff. I don't know if they call it porn, but it's you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah. There's levels. They don't moved up.
So
Yeah.
now we get so desensitized,
smut and all that other stuff.
right? We get so desensitized to what used to be outlandish that now people are trying even harder to get to that. It's an addiction.
Yeah,
it's a psychological effect. They try even harder to get that dopamine release, and it's you see it throughout society. But yeah, nobody wants to see just somebody doing good work and you know talking positive. That's really unless you motivate them or something. But you know.
Because you can tell by the views on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know how many people are looking at positive content versus, you know, all the other ratchetness that's out there.
Right.
You know, and I had to stop watching a lot because, you know, I'm like anybody. I'm like, if I see something that's like, oh, wait, let me go to somebody send me a video or they tell me about something that's kind of controversial or negative, I would want to watch it. But I had to take charge of my own brain.
There you go.
And be like, I used to watch Real Housewives of Atlanta faithfully on Sunday night or whenever they used to come on those first couple of seasons. And then one season, I think it was, and y'all might not be familiar, but it was the season Phaedra and Candy got into an issue, and Phaedra had accused Candy of sexual assault or something that was a possible criminal offense.
Right.
And I was just like, I wanted to jump through the TV and just bust Andy Cohen in his eye. Like, you know, because I'm like, all of these franchises, he started all of these, but for some reason, the Real Housewives of Atlanta, they fight on all of the franchises. But you know, when it's the black women, it just seemed like it was super extra.
But
You know, all the stuff that was going
that's what
on.
I'm saying.
And also on that show, it didn't seem like there were as many black business owners. Candy was really the only one for the longest time, but they used to pump up Kim, the white lady's businesses, and she got a spinoff show, you know, all of that. And, you know, it was just the whole, like, I just didn't like that whole dynamic. And so I just stopped watching all of the Basketball Wives, you know, all of the wives, which, and it's funny because ain't none of them was a wife, but that's a whole other story. But I had to stop. I had to take the opportunity to be like, you know what, just because it's on my TV don't mean I have to turn to it.
Right.
But the thing with that is what you and other women don't understand is that by supporting these negative images of black women, you are actually supporting the way people view you as being angry black women.
And that's why I stopped, because I saw that, like, you know, because it was entertainment. I wasn't on it at like how you're saying when it was first, because I was just like, you know, oh child, let me, you know, see what they up to this week. Nene and all her
We're being
foolishness.
entertained.
And then at some point it turned for me. And I was like, I can't, I started to be upset. Like, even though I wasn't on the show and it wasn't affecting me in that moment, you know, I wasn't personally getting cussed out or getting a chair thrown at me, but it started to affect me because I was like, you know what? I don't like this. And they really are depicting us in such a negative light, you know, the angry black woman and all of those other things. And it wasn't just that, but the way Michelle Obama was portrayed, you know, and anytime, you know, you in the workplace, I had an actual white woman in my workplace touch my hair without asking me, you know, and those are things I had heard about that had happened to other people. But then I started experiencing some of these things and it was just like, is this an out of body experience? Like I was, you know, it was like the chickens came home to roost almost in a lot of these areas where these things were really starting to happen to me in real time. And as you get older, also, I'm not going to say everybody in my age group, you know, is as mature enough in some areas and, you know, making better decisions. But I know for me, I also had to show my kids a better example, because even though I'm not on Real Housewives of Atlanta, I'm watching it. So what does that say about me as a person? Now they may think I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, even if I'm watching all of these shows. But for me, I want to portray a different, you know, example and show them other things, show them how to be in business for themselves and not just be an employee, because they don't teach that in schools. They want us to be employees, not entrepreneurs.
There you go.
You know, there's so many different levels of brainwashing and things that are being done. It's too many to count. They're everywhere.
Well, and
blackball, blackmail, blacklist. Those are all negative words.
Negative.
Yeah.
White lie.
It's not new.
Not too bad. White
lie is not bad at all. Not bad at all. Just
just little things like that. When you but those, you know, your brain absorbs all of that, and then you start to think about yourself differently.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to monopolize. But
No. You're adding to the show.
You brought up, I mean, some very valid points, and I was just going to point back to the example you said. You said it, like you said, they fight on all the shows, but for whatever reason, you know, on the Atlanta Housewives, it was to another level, and that's what I'm talking about. That whole you get used to the regular fight, so now you need the next level of fighting. And it was for entertainment, but that entertainment turns into an addiction. I make it a habit when I go out to eat with my family. We sit there, you know, nobody can pull out their phone at the table or whatever. But if you just look around, quote unquote, family sitting at a table and nobody's looking at each other, nobody's talking to each other. Everybody is caught up in their phone, you know. But we have to. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment, but it's a time and place for everything. You have to put that down and say, okay, I'm going to do this for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever the case may be, because we waste so much time trying to entertain ourselves. And that's another continuous cycle that we go through, because that dopamine, it takes more and more of it to satisfy that need. I was reading some kind of report and they were talking about the dopamine effects you get just from like on you. I know
Likes, getting likes.
Well, not even getting likes, but like on YouTube. I don't know if you guys experience. I experience it all the time. I'll start off looking for how to wash your car, and then 3 hours later, I'm looking at
go down the rabbit hole. Yeah,
how to travel to the moon. How did I get here, and where did my 3 hours go? But it's designed that way.
Yeah.
Wikipedia is that for me.
Wikipedia?
Yeah, because you'll be reading a story and there's a link within the story with a name and not an opened up. I got 12 windows open on my laptop, and I'm like, why is it 3:30 in the morning? Like, I don't even remember what I was looking
but
for.
that is the goal of all these outlets, is to monopolize
they've
your
succeeded
time.
in my house because
but they succeeded in pretty much everybody's house. But you have to recognize that's what's happening, and then you can change. But if you don't recognize it, then you just continue to go. I've done it several times. I'm like, how I get it on to galaxy traveling, and it's been 5 hours. But you have to be aware. So entertainment, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you need to set limits and parameters to say, look, I'm only going to do this for this long, and then I'm on to something productive that's going to be beneficial in my life, or to somebody at least.
You mean we have to have discipline and
discipline?
Okay.
Self-discipline.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm gonna be disciplined. I'm gonna reel us back to the show.
You can take us back.
I'm gonna take us back. I'm gonna be disciplined. Take us back.
There you go.
So okay, we're gonna talk about the effects on the kids. So I got 2 clips on that. We saw the 3-year-old cocaine kid.
The
cocaine kid. We saw that. Now we're gonna go to
3-year-old,
a little bit older. 11-year-old. 1 second.
A boy is in critical condition in a New York City hospital this morning with burns over half his body after a drug-related attack. Police say David Opont was on his way to school in Brooklyn when he was dragged off by another boy. He was beaten, bound, and set on fire after he refused to smoke crack. A 13-year-old boy has been arrested and charged with attempted murder. Today is David's 12th birthday.
Wow.
We got one more.
I think I remember that story. But
we got one more.
In Kansas City, Missouri, police are investigating the shooting death of an 11-year-old boy at a suspected drug house. Frederick Jones had lived in the house up until a month ago. He went back with his sister Saturday night to get some belongings. As he opened the door, he was shot dead. A 14-year-old boy has been arrested, but other children in the neighborhood are still frightened.
I feel sad, and I would stay in the house. I don't want to get shot. The world is not going right after all. God might take care of him if he goes up to heaven.
Police think Jones may have been shot simply because he didn't identify himself at the door.
Crack house, and yeah. So, it affected the kids. As you see,
you become numb. You know, if you're living in these neighborhoods and these things are happening in real time, multiple times a day, every day, the whole year, like I can't imagine what it's like. You know what? Now, I don't know personally, but I would imagine it's like being at war. This is PTSD. We like to, and by we, I just mean generally as a country, we like to assign PTSD just to people who've been in, like actual wars, like the Gulf War, World War II and such. But living in these streets, in these neighborhoods, the stuff that Black folks have endured, and I'm sure, I can't speak for any other ethnic group, but we have post-traumatic slave disorder. A lot of the things that slavery was a moneymaker for this country. And so everything that has happened after that is designed to make money off of us and to keep us outside. And so for these kids, so they're 12 and 13 and younger. Again, what did their life look like? Where are they now, if you will?
Right.
Like, I just wonder, what that must look like. Because again, this is just more of that same cycle I'm talking about. Because some of these same kids might have grew up to be in that life because that was the only thing they knew. And then they have children who are in that life. It's the family business at this point, like with the family in Houston. And it just, these children are asked to come here, to be brought into this world. And we've really let these generations down I had to say that out loud one day because I can't talk about things and not act like I'm not a participant, in a lot of ways. Now, for my own personal kids, knock on wood, everybody's well and, they're not out here doing these things. But I also have lived in communities, not recently, where I probably could have done more. Because again, if your parents are on drugs or in jail, I, as a neighbor, why didn't I reach out and become a positive influence and guiding force in a child's life? And even if I move out of the neighborhood, because a lot of us, once we become successful and we start making a little change, we leave our neighborhoods and we don't ever go back, not even to visit or to try to bring somebody else up in the same way that we went. And so I think in a lot of those cases, we dropped the ball there too. We didn't go back to the neighborhood. We let the village just die on the vine.
So what you were saying, there was actually a study there. I read an article 4 years ago that said the inner city, the urban youth have PTSD just like the kids over there in the war zones.
Oh, I believe
The same form of PTSD.
Oh, it's a fact.
Seeing people die, from seeing people go to jail all the time. Just the whole up and down, the drastic ups and downs of living in the
But
ghetto.
they're not talking about that, just like with the drug war versus the opioid crisis.
Oh yeah,
right?
come on.
That's
Yeah,
you see where I'm
yeah,
going with that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
of course we're not discussing all of these kids from these neighborhoods having PTSD, because if the truth be told by most folks, we did it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Everything that happened, we did it to like how? Okay. You just know that that's what the narrative is going to be. And it's so unfortunate, because we all as people deserved better. And this is a story for another day. I'm gonna just kind of say it and then I'm gonna let it ride. We don't even have to have more of a discussion about it, but I do from time to time wonder what kind of higher power would allow slavery and the Holocaust to happen.
Yeah.
I can't reconcile. And again, I'm not saying the world had to be perfect and there's flowers and daisies and we all got to be singing Kumbaya together. But those two particular atrocities to me, and of course there's been more since then, but just starting with slavery as we know it and as we've come to understand it. And then the Holocaust, about 80 years ago.
Indians though. Start with the Native Americans though, because that
part too.
Yeah, that preceded that. I mean, they genocide. What you just said.
Well, here's the thing, and I think sadly with the Native Americans, why I didn't even think about discussing that is because they've basically vaporized them off of the face of this earth. We don't hear much.
Small pockets here and there.
Small pockets, right? But it's not the ongoing conversation and everything. When you say when we say it's always black and white, black versus white, there's so many other groups in the middle that don't get discussed in the same fashion. But I think that's done on purpose also, because white only became that when it was pitted against us.
Yeah.
Because Italians, Irish, all the other that came from their countries here, they were that. They were actually treated more like us.
Yep.
And then they were able to elevate because of their skin pigmentation, and they're all white now.
Well, that's to separate them from black people, because
of course.
Hey, we need to say we're better than them. So hey, we got to band together. We need the numbers, because they got numbers and they got the skill sets. They got the strength. Look how they stay out in them fields all the time. Look at the muscle mass. Look at this. So if we don't get together, they're gonna come over and they're gonna overtake us. So hey, this is what we got to do. In 2020,
when George Floyd got murdered, we really came together in those couple of months because we were all home, had COVID and all the things. So that was the universe's way of being like, I'm about to show y'all what, and then what it galvanized people in a way that I had never really seen in my lifetime. Maybe during the civil rights era, that might have been something similar that happened. But I'm saying in terms of me as a older person, I had never seen that. And I know a lot of folks were afraid because it was all groups that were in agreement that we watched a murder live on television for 9 minutes and 30 seconds or however long it was, and we all saw that it was wrong. We knew that it was wrong, and we were now galvanized, in protest against that. And that's when people got scared, because it wasn't just black folks protesting, it wasn't just white, it was everybody, young, old, all shades, gay, straight, in between, binary, non-binary, it was everybody. And when you have that that's the two Americas Martin Luther King was talking about, where I think that was what killed him. I think when he had that speech and talked about the two Americas.
Yeah.
This
Also
is
the
what we
financial
saw in
structure, also
2020.
financially, the
Right.
financial thing. They killed them. They didn't want that to happen.
And that's the thing, is so because you divide and you conquer.
Mhm.
And when you can make, and Lyndon Johnson, I know this is a whole other, but when Lyndon Johnson said, basically the goal is to try to make the poorest white feel higher and more entitled than the black person. I was like, okay, y'all.
But
This is, like you already, if you didn't know, like there's been so many examples we've been shown of what this world was designed to do to us and what it had in mind for us. And then we fall in line and help them out. It
we're
just,
doing their job for them now. We doing this. We're doing this. They're on autopilot. We're doing this. We're running this show now. That's why I wanted to get you on Sunday show though. So we're gonna have, because you have this talk.
I have
we
a
have
gig
now.
on Sunday, or else
No,
I
I
would have been
understand.
on
No.
it.
But what I'm gonna do, I understand. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do a whole nother show. If maybe the Sunday after that, we're gonna revisit, because I have something else. Something
Okay.
else that kind of coincides, because all this, like you said, everything like lines up to everything else.
Yeah.
We can't touch a point in history that didn't jump to another point in history
Right.
that still affects us today. We can't do it.
It's like the rabbit hole he was just
Yeah,
talking
it
about.
keeps going. The rabbit hole keeps going.
You over here talking about one thing, but then it affects this,
Yeah.
and then it affects 12 other things, and you're like, I can't. My head is spinning.
You know how you have the little police diagram where you have a suspect there, and you put the yawn this way. You put
the yawn is all across,
all over the place. Just put America. Just put all of America, all 50 states up there, and you're gonna see. You'll see that
the correlation, right?
Yeah,
it's
everything correlates to.
It's one degree of separation.
A certain place.
It's one degree of separation.
Yeah.
One issue, you don't have far to go to find something else that is affected because of that. It's madness. It's been happening. It's just that we were young, and then we became older, and now it's like, oh, this is what my parents was talking about when they said X, Y, and Z. Oh, I get it now. And that's the thing, is where a lot of us are not having these conversations with our own children, because we would rather be on TikTok.
And also, as long as they keep us trying to be in a survival mode, right? We can't talk about these things because we're uneasy. Right now, if I was in more survival mode, I probably wouldn't be doing what I was doing. I started this during COVID, when I was sitting back, and I was just, all right, I don't have nothing to do. And I just started reading different stuff, started looking at stuff. I'm like, you know what? I got all this knowledge, and I thought about my son. I thought about my nieces and nephews. I'm like, if they don't do it right, no other kids that might not have somebody in their life like me won't get it. So the thing is, if I die, like I said before, if I died, and black people have constantly having to replay or relearn what they, the previous generation already knew. We are constantly in a thing of relearning stuff. Like, it dies, we come back. Okay, well, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. Well, why you didn't know that? And these other groups of people passing on generation to generation, it sticks. But we don't do this. Hey Ashley, what's up? Y'all go check out Black Girl Interrupted. Hey Ashley, you got a show tonight? I don't know. She usually on right after us. She gives us respect, and moved the show back just to tune in and stuff. So got to shout her out. She's on all platforms. Black Girl Interrupted. Go check her out, y'all.
Oh, cool.
And she talks about topics pretty much like a lot of therapy and stuff, and trying to, she real deep about stuff. She puts herself in it. She talks about her own personal journey with issues and stuff.
Okay.
But like I said, as long as we're in a survival mode, right? As long as we're in competition, men and women, this why I was doing the one on Sundays. It's more about like interpersonal in the black community, gender war. We have conflict between each other, so we can't come together. Well, they do that for a reason, because how we can't focus on growth. We can't focus on like sending stuff to our kids, giving our kids certain messages. Teaching them to bond and teaching them, hey, you could bond with you're a female, but okay. She said no show tonight, tomorrow night.
Oh,
So
okay.
tomorrow night, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And I'm talking Eastern time. But as long as they keep us at a constant state of unrest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they keep us a constant state of unrest.
Just
They
chaos.
got us. They got us.
I was
Just,
explaining that to my family that that is fear is a great motivator, but that's all that we're being sold on right now is fear. Something going wrong, something not working right. Everything is to promote that survival mode that you just talked about. Is to get you, and we stay in that constant mode, so you can never really be productive like you need to be until you realize that's what's going on, and then you make a conscious decision, say, I'm not going to play this game. This fear mode, this survival mode. I'm looking to be prosperous. I'm looking in a level of abundance. But if you look, if you start paying attention, everything is geared towards your fear of something. Whether they're selling you something or trying to get you to do something, is I don't know how you guys feel about COVID, but COVID was about fear. Everything on TV,
population control. Also,
you look at
that's the first thing I said was it was population control to me.
But you look at just just something as basic as your AC going out. It's the or you having termites. It's all based in fear of, if you don't get this done, this is what's going to happen. And we are constantly in a mode of survival. We never get out of that mode to where we can actually take an assessment and say, this is what I need to be doing. It's not, you get out of that fear mode, and then we can start making some progress. But I was just, kind of piggybacking on what you were talking about, being in that survival mode.
Yeah, you can't thrive until you get hold on, got a comment.
That's exactly right.
They said they want us to fear everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
I heard a guy say the other day, how you gonna be afraid to live and afraid to die? And he was right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He was right.
You like this.
Right. You can't. You're paralyzed at that point.
You can't have faith and worry at the same time. That's disrespectful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But you're paralyzed. You can't act because you scared no matter which direction you go in.
But they have medicine for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's they
got dope for that too.
States of distress.
Yeah, they got dope for that.
It's every right. It's just whatever you want. There's something for everything.
It is.
And we've gotten away from the holistic way of life.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So we have to go back to the root, to the origin of things. But a lot of us don't know what that is because we weren't taught it or shown it. And, you can do your research. I just find it interesting. When Will Smith, when that happened with him and Chris Rock, there was a guy that I know, he was talking to me about it and wanted, have a whole dialogue and all this and that and the other. I said, you know what? It was like the 5th day. So I was over it at that point. I was like, we got other stuff that's going on. I've already said what I said. I said, but do you know anything about Jenny Thomas and her participating in January 6th, with all the people and her part in that? No. Who's Jenny Thomas? Clarence Thomas' wife. He was like, no, you're going to have to school me on all of that. I said, I'm not teaching you anything because you was so ready to talk to me about Will and Chris and had all of the stories that you read and the videos you had seen. But now you want me to give you the 411 on Jenny Thomas? Go Google it.
Yeah, go look it up.
And he was just looking dumb at me like, wait, what happened? I was like, nah, because I'm over it. Like, you could tell me with your eyes closed everything about that incident, but when it comes to the thing that really is harming us,
real affects us,
the thing that's gonna affect us for real, is crickets. Like, you have no clue. I haven't been really keeping up with it. Okay, the same Google that you talk where you got all your information about Will and Chris is the same Google. You could go and just type in Jenny Smith. Get out of my face.
But that's why I tell my son and young people, like, there's no reason to be ignorant of anything when you have this phone is powerful than computers. It's more powerful than computers they had 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
They know what they want to know.
Yeah.
Right.
They know what they want to know. Why the reason why me and the gentleman got we on YouTube and we done went down the rabbit hole. Why I got 15 pages open on Wikipedia because we want to know what we want to know.
We want to know what we want to know. Yeah. And I'm constant in a state of learning different things. That's my whole thing. At night, I sleep 3 or 4 hours a night, because if I see something like that, I'm like, okay, where does this go? Where does this go? Because my mind is always trying to make the connections between stuff.
We can go on Jeopardy together because we probably know so much stuff that's inconsequential, but it's gonna come up as a question and Final Jeopardy, and we're gonna be like, but I know.
And I retain some of the stuff. The thing is, I retain stuff, and like the whole study about the PTSD thing in the inner city, stuff like that, because it matters and people don't talk about this. So the things that I think people don't talk about that matters, it sticks with me. Like the surface level stuff, I don't even worry about that because everybody's talking about this. So it misses me. That stuff, like, all right, whatever, or the stars and different stuff. Yeah, unless I can correlate that with something that's going on, I don't even worry about that majority of the time.
Well, I will tell you, a large majority of why things are also happening is because of the shame and the stigma of not discussing. So like your mom had you at a young age, in the family or wherever, it was like you didn't want, she didn't want the family to know or other people to know. And I say this all the time to people, we need to really start telling the truth, because anybody who we thought might have judged us, like, elders and such, they are all dead now.
Yeah.
Well,
like, if you tell me something about yourself, I promise you, we're gonna have a discussion about it. I'm not gonna judge you. I'm not gonna make you feel bad because you had a child and you was 14. There was a reason why that happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was probably, we don't want to, the word wrong gets used a lot in ways that it shouldn't also. It was just like, you didn't know better. When you know better, you do better. You know what I'm saying? But then when you know better and you don't do better, now it's wrong.
That's wrong. Yeah, that's the problem.
Now it's wrong.
It's ignorance first, and then it's wrong
ignorance,
after you learn.
but now you dead wrong, because now you know better, and you still decide that you're not going to, change your way of thinking and your way of doing. And so I think a lot of us would benefit from some form of therapy. I go every Wednesday. That's just me, because I enjoy. That's me time. I enjoy not having to answer my phone for an hour. I leave the phone in the car and I walk in there and I'm fully prepared to talk just about me. I love my kids and my family, but for 1 hour, this is about me. And I get to get things off my chest in such a way that it's at my own pace. I say what I want to say. When I first went, I couldn't describe myself with 3 words, because I'll say I'm an accountant, I'm this, I'm that, and she was like, no, tell me who you are, not what you do.
Right.
I was struggling. I was like, I'm nice. I was struggling.
Survival. Yeah, because you're survival.
I can, man.
Never
you
took
can't
the time
stop me at this point.
to do that self-evaluation. You were strictly in survival.
That's why I say people don't like themselves, but they're not doing the work to get to that place.
But you got to know that.
That's what, and when you can hold yourself,
that's your power. Actually, that's your power.
When you can hold yourself accountable for things, man, it frees you up.
It
in
does.
such a way.
But see, that's what I was gonna comment on when you talked about people need to start telling the truth. Once you are honest with yourself, it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
That part.
And it gives you a certain amount of, it gives you freedom to live your life the way it should be lived. But you have to be honest with yourself to start.
We're hiding in plain sight.
Don't worry about other people. Just be, if you know, okay, look, I indulge in alcohol a little bit too much.
I might be a little bit alcoholic.
Yeah, I might have an issue with this, but and whether you tell somebody or share that with somebody or not, it doesn't matter. As long as you are recognizing it for yourself that this is something I need to work on. This is something I need to get better at. But we lie to ourselves. We look in the mirror and lie to ourselves.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna put anybody out there, directly. But I see women do stuff like I'm just weigh myself in the morning and then it might be a pound lighter. No, either you try to lose weight or you're not. Just don't, be honest with yourself. It's like I said, this once you take that ownership, then you're completely free and you can do anything. Then you start to fix your problems when you take ownership. But until you accept it and say this is who I am, then it just, you could take, like you sweeping the butt on the rug and you got a big pile now.
But I will tell you also, I think a lot of why those things don't happen in the fashion in which they should is because people also enjoy living in the victimhood.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That's why people walk around being triggered all the time, because they don't know themselves, and everything you can say always hits me because I don't want to face myself. And the victim Olympics people do, because it gets them attention. It gets them attention, and they can push it off on themselves. They can say, "Oh well, okay, look at that way, on other people."
They get to blame you for their shortcomings. They're like, "Oh, you triggered."
And we're so used to having that in our DNA and our system. So now when we're asked to do the work to elevate ourselves, we're not familiar with that terrain, a lot of us. So, that's new. Change, for a lot of people, they don't like change. They'd rather just stew and marinate in that victimhood and the negativity and the toxicity, because they've been dealing with that their whole life.
It's comfortable with it.
Well,
they're comfortable.
That's why you look about partners. Like when you pick certain partners, you pick the same type of partner over and over again, even though it's bad, but it's comfortable to you. So it don't matter. You're looking for the best of the worst situation, and it's still a bad situation.
It's the devil you know.
Yeah, it's the devil you know. There you go.
Right, and because it's familiar, and nobody wants to step outside that comfort zone. But you have to. You have to. That's the only way you get stronger is to stretch. You have to
love yourself.
You have to reach.
Do you understand? That's the part. You have to love yourself, because we
Ashley
take care of
hurt
cars.
is the new norm. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
We take care of cars. We going for maintenance every 3,000 miles, whatever. We do other things. But when it comes to ourselves, the neglect in so many ways is visible.
I like how you said you go to therapy every Wednesday, and it may be, some people might not be ready for that just yet. But I always say spend some time with yourself, just like the first 10 minutes in the morning, the first 10 or the last 10 minutes at night. Just take some self accountability and say, where am I right now? We do not give ourselves the time. It's that constant survival mode that we talked about, but we don't give ourselves the time that we need, because once we are right, then the people around us can get right. We can start to share this information with others. But
and like you said, at night, I'm gonna pick it back off you. All it takes is doing this at night before you go to bed. What did I do today? What can I do better tomorrow? It's simple as that.
Yeah.
What can I do better tomorrow? That way, you're acknowledging that you're not perfect. You have things to work on, and what is the things that you can work on?
We're
What
too
are
busy
the things
scrolling on Instagram, Will.
What's that?
We're too busy scrolling on Instagram.
Yeah, that's true. But before you go to sleep,
ask ourselves.
I'm guilty of it too. But I'm in a constant state of multitasking, right? So I can do that. I can do that while I'm working. That's what I'm doing. I'm listening to different stuff to, kind of come up with concepts, kind of get my ideas together, formulating ideas, and then at night before I go to sleep, if I've got something on my mind, I'll wake up in the morning, write some stuff down. Boom, boom. Look all this right there. If I show you inside my phone, right, I have in my notes just like rows of just ideas.
Yes.
Once I get to it on a show, people are like, damn, this is like I have a year's worth, almost let's say about 9 months worth of content just written down in my phone. Because I'm not in survival no more.
Right.
Like my gift, and it comes from a bad situation. I'm gonna share a little story, so people can understand. Like everything that happens to you that you take for negative can be something positive. You look at it that way. Like I've been shotgun point blank to my head Halloween night when I was 20 years old, and what that did, it was negative. Like it was negative, but then after the fact, I had another situation where I was life or death situation, guns drawn on me, all kind of other stuff.
Right.
Another one like that, and then I'm like, I stopped fearing death. So I was freed from fearing death. I'm like, you know what? When I turned 25, I was like, I'm not part of statistic, because the statistic in New Orleans, that's where I'm from, is that most young men don't make it to 25. Right. So that freed me. Like, look, I made it over this point. So I don't feel like anything's out to kill me now, but I have these experiences. So it put me into when you're older people, they don't fear death. So they're able to say what they want to say. They're able to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
It put me into that place. So now I don't fear death. I don't, I can say what I want to say and do what I want to do and be like, okay, now I know the consequences of this and that. I kind of put everything together, and I can talk to people on that level because I've been there. I've PTSD. You want to talk about PTSD? for I want to say about a year or something, I used to have dreams of me dying a different way every time I went to sleep almost. And it wasn't like I was scared. I'm like, okay, this is how I died today. All right, whatever.
Right.
Forget it. All right. I wonder how I'm gonna die tomorrow. Like ocean, see myself ate by a shark, going down, just
Yeah.
crazy stuff, just different things, and it freed me to be able to talk to people and be able to understand people on different kind of levels and not be scared of their
Right.
their comments or what they think about me. I
Right.
don't care about that. But I would like to help other people, so that's why I do what I do, and that's how I'll have these talks.
And the truth be told, whether we admit it or not, we all pretty much deal with the same stuff.
Mhm.
It may be different severity levels or whatever, but we can all have something that we can share with one another that people have experienced, because life is pretty much the same thing for everybody. It's just how you deal with it, how you respond to it is really how it turns out for you.
Yeah.
Or different times in your life. You
Yeah,
get
or different times
things
in your life.
yeah.
So I mean, that's why it's good, like you said, to be able to help somebody else, because whether it's the exact same situation, it's something that fits right into that puzzle, I guess you can say. So it's good to be able to share that information with people, like you said, and not feel like you're
it
being
builds character.
Yeah, it's character.
Insanity is when you do something over and over expecting a different result. You would think that people would get tired of the things happening in their life and that's another thing, is you have to really concentrate on things that you can change. I can't change, because like they say, what you think about me is none of my business.
Right.
I used to think it was. I used to be like, well, why does she feel that way about me? Like, I've never done anything to her. Like, why? Like I used to be all wrapped up. And then I just got to a place, I don't know what age it was, where I just was like, F it. Like, I can't, like, I have to concentrate on the things that I can control, because you will make yourself crazy.
And it doesn't come valid until you feed into that, right? What that person thinks is not valid until you give it energy. So
And it's also
you
a
focus
you
on it, or
problem.
you make it so.
And half the time, what you think they think about you is probably not even accurate anyway, because we don't even take the time to say, do we have a
conversation?
problem?
They have a conversation.
Yeah, do we have a problem, or is something? Where are we missing each other? We don't know how to communicate. We went from talking to people to we back to writing letters again. That's what texting is. We don't even talk. We don't know how to have a basic conversation with an individual face to face anymore.
Right.
So, like I said, we get in our heads about why they feel like that about me, when they may not even feel that way. But like you said, that's not any of our business.
It's really not our business,
because they're allowed to feel however they want to.
Right. And that's also their issue.
That's
my issue.
That's a projection of their issues onto you.
If they're using their energy to worry about you, they got a lot of growing to do. They got work to do. That's a waste of time.
And then I'm concerned about something wherein what really taught me was I would be upset about an issue, and the person who was part of that issue had no clue that I was even stewing and marinating to this point over it. And I was like, okay, this is a waste of time. Like, that's what I'm saying about these lessons, when you have to really, like, because if you're in these relationships and it's toxic, each of them that you're in is toxic, at some point you have to, that's you. You're the common denominator.
You have to own it. You have to own that. Own that.
Really, but the owning part is what people are really struggling with, because again, they're not ready for the self-reflection and taking inventory of what is going on. Because then that would require you to change at that point.
You have to do something now.
Now you got to put in the work.
And we out here acting like Ben Simmons out in these streets.
Wow.
I'm sorry. My bad.
Acting like Ben, old Ben.
I'm a Nets fan. I'm just
okay. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Right.
It's just, there's a lot of Ben Simmonses out here.
You're right. They just
you got to really do the work. I know, you got some pains and some things are going on, but you got to push through. That's my analogy. You really got to push through.
You do.
We don't make them like we used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just got to do some stuff. Like people used to always talk about our grandparents and our parents' marriages lasting for decades and such. The same stuff we are dealing with now, they dealt with. They just didn't have.
They were stronger people.
There was nowhere for them to go. My mother was like, in a family of multiple siblings. Like if your parents had 11 kids, where was she going if she left your dad. Like she
Back
was the
home.
homemaker for the
Yeah.
most part.
Mhm.
She didn't work outside the home.
But
How's she supporting these people? It was out of necessity that they stayed.
Mhm.
Now, your grandmother may tell you that story, or maybe she won't. But when you look back, I mean, a lot of these marriages, you would hope that they were great, and most of the times were good times. But if you think about it from the standpoint of where was grandma going with
Yeah.
these 11 kids?
I think this is a slight tangent off of the topic, but I think we tried to we did a marriage a disservice, and we romanticized it because everybody talks about being in love and all this stuff.
Being happy.
And
Being
really,
happy.
it has nothing. I'm not gonna say nothing, but it's very little to do with that.
It was
It's
a
more,
business arrangement.
there you
There you
go.
go.
It's
Yeah.
more. It's more.
That's why you have to go to
puts-
court.
It puts both individuals in a better position in society. Is what it
Right.
does. It provides like you said, a foundation
Mm-hmm.
for your family, and that's the bigger business is your family, and then you hope that continues on to where everybody has this foundation. But now we done romanticize it where you got to love them, and if they don't do this and this,
The
then
ring,
go
Conditional. Conditional.
find
the
your
everything,
true
right?
love, and it has nothing. I tell my wife all the time, it's more important that I like you than I love you. I promise you. I see people kill the loved ones
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Nobody if I like somebody, I don't do anything bad to them. If I
Right.
like somebody, oh, let's go get some lunch. Let's go out
Right.
and grab a steak. But but people who love people, they show up dead all the time in the name of love.
Love.
Yeah.
I say it's so much more important to like somebody than to love them. But just getting back to the whole marriage thing, that people think it's supposed to be some kind of fairy tale to where I gotta be in love and I need to be
Because
float.
that's what we've been seeing. What's been
Well, that's what
shown
they
to
tell
us.
us. That's what
Yeah,
they sell us
so
on TV.
Yeah.
the diamond industry,
Yeah.
the card industry.
I
You know,
mean, everything.
Like I said
Yeah.
And
before, they
yeah.
understood the business part of it, or not so much
they understood the
business part,
necessity
but they
of living.
understood why
To
we
live.
why we come together
Mhm.
to make it better for our kids.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then hopefully they will take that same example and then grow a better foundation. Then you build generational wealth
Yeah.
and things like
But
that.
also going to the macro, if you have stronger families, now you have a strong community.
There you go.
Because you got stronger you keep building stronger families till you have a stronger community. And that's what we don't get. We don't have stronger families no more. So we can't
because we
build a strong community.
we chasing the wrong thing. We
Yeah.
still, and that gets back to that
Yeah.
selfish thing about I want to be in love, or I gotta love. Come on,
What can love do for me, basically?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've dealt with I go to the gas station, and you'll see a lot of the young guys just kind of hanging out in front of the gas station. And I always make it my business to engage them, and be like, how y'all doing today? What y'all up to? Just talk to them on their level,
Mhm.
just as a auntie or a mom. And I'll be like, have you eaten today? What you want? I'll buy, it don't have to be nothing fancy, because the QT, they
Yeah.
got a nice little sampling of stuff. It don't, if I have the funds, I can do that today. It might be the only meal they had. I'm not doing it for any other reason other than I just happened to see him. I didn't come out my house planning to do this, but if I see, and if the young men, because I see more of the young men out here in
It's
the
on your spirit.
streets. So, and I have a son. My son is the youngest of my kids. He's 18. So, I every day, am struggling to not, to hope that he is okay, because these streets, they don't want him out here. This world does not want y'all. And we've seen that more and more. And I believe when Obama was president, I promise you, I felt like every Black person, every Black male that was killed, they killed them because they couldn't get at Obama.
Well, it's pent up tension from feeling like they were losing this country.
Well, yeah, and I might mean that literally in some senses, but more figuratively, in a lot of instances, that definitely you can't tell me otherwise. You just can't. And and it's just, so we as mothers and fathers, of children, not even of boys, of girls too, are just walking around hoping that we're here long enough to make sure that they get a good start in life and maintain those values that we've instilled in them, and they don't deviate from that. It's just, but again, I can't really control that. I can do as much as I can do as a parent, and then turn them loose in the world and hope that they'll be okay.
Mhm.
But it's just, it's hard. So when that question was posed today, I'll usually just scroll, because sometimes if I comment and I'm like, do I even want to get into this today? But then I was like, you know what? No, I need to really say this. And then I was like, let's have a discussion about it. Who else feels like they want to talk about it? So I'm glad that I did, because it allowed me to be on your show, for you to invite me. And now at this point, you can't get rid of me.
Oh no, yeah, you welcome. Hey, you're
So-
welcome. You're welcome. Like I said, the universe does stuff, right, that we don't even understand what's going on.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I told you earlier. Um, so let's talk about. We touched on a lot of stuff. Let's talk about. Well, first of all, let me go back to the title, because I promised the people I was going to talk about how the brothers,
Man,
you know.
get on task,
But
man.
so the thing is, I'm real quick. So we failed the community because we worried about ourselves. The brothers that worried about selling drugs were lining their own pockets and not worrying about the community, the mothers they were going to affecting the kids. The kids are going to be affected from the mother smoking crack. The mother's not, not being able to parent their children.
Right.
Taking fathers out the household, because a lot of killing happened during that time. A lot of people got in prison that were males. Destabilized our family unit, and from that, we have pretty much the foundation for what we have now. People not trusting each other because of, if he's a junkie, hey, we ain't gonna trust them. The mistrust between people because of drugs and everything else. So these brothers that did that actually damaged our community, and actually put the nail in the coffin, to be honest, for me. Like I said, it started with the individualism from the family with feminism. And when
Right.
it came down to this part of, the drugs community and the brothers doing that, which was systematic, because, we want to make money because we weren't able to work. We weren't able to provide
provide.
our family, because the double minority, the black woman,
Right.
was given more opportunities.
Right.
So that's how these brothers, weren't loyal to the community. They were more loyal than themselves than they were the community. Had they just said, you know what, I'm not going to hurt my own community. I'm going to figure out a way. We're gonna band together as a community, figure out a way to employ these young men, because we see the Muslim community does it well. They band together to do certain things.
Right.
These young men are not doing stuff in the community, not doing harm to the community. So if we would have had that kind of talking about the black men, right? If the black men had that kind of tenacity and that kind of structured mind and forward thought to say, you know what, we need to do something. We need to do
Yeah.
something to keep this from happening. We don't poison our community. By no means is that okay. And
Right.
maybe we'd be in a different place. So with that, all that I just said, right? It was kind of gloss over, but because we solved the problems of the black community in this whole hour 50 minutes. So
Right.
now, what do you think the solution is for our community? Taking our community back and doing something about fixing it.
Well, first we have to have the sense of community come back,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense. Because I think you or somebody earlier in the post that we were talking about, if my kid does something wrong and y'all witness it, but y'all chastise him, in today's society, I'm like, don't talk to my son like that. Who you think you are?
Right.
You don't, that's my son. I'll deal with him. We have to get away from that. We have to get away from the community aspect of we all are responsible for each other.
Yeah.
And I think once that happens, not only are we now responsible for each other, we now hold each other accountable. Because if we're going to be responsible for each other, I'm going to have to say some stuff to you that you're not going to like. You're going to need, where you said before, when I said, I don't, who am I to judge? This would be the time. Now I got to judge you. Because if we all in this together and there's one common goal, I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire like I would hold mine to the fire. If I know if I'm slacking or there's an area in which I'm deficient or I could use improvement or do something different, I would expect for y'all to tell me if it's a common goal, right? And so we have to hold each other accountable. We have to get back to having community, because kids they want to be who they see, if that makes any sense.
No.
And in a lot of ways, they haven't been seeing good examples of things. That's why I say I hold my generation kind of accountable for that.
Oh, we
Because
are.
we were the first
Yeah.
generation, I think, like say if grandma died and owned a house in South Carolina, we trying to sell the house to
Sell the
get the
house.
money.
Mm-hmm.
My mother wouldn't have sold a house. You know, she would have moved to South Carolina, like, or she would, she would have had a different option
Mm-hmm.
because that was how she was raised, born in 1941. Me being born in 1969, and coming up in a different world, in a capitalistic society, right? Because we done seen that the 80s was the greed from, Wall Street, the movie, and all of the things. And me being from New York, we saw that firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
So we all about the money at this point. If my grandmother died, I'm trying to sell her house
Mm-hmm.
because I want this Gucci bag.
Yep.
And so that mindset has got us to the place we're at. We dropped the ball. So while my man is saying, how can we help our kids? We have to pick the ball back up.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to, it has to start with us. We keep pointing the finger. They doing this, they doing that. I wonder why they doing that. How come he's acting like that? Yeah, no, we got to point it back at us.
Mm-hmm.
Once you hold yourself accountable for what you did or didn't do, and you acknowledge it and you make changes, that starts the healing and the reconciliation for us as a family and as a community.
Yeah, brother.
A solution?
Yeah, we'll do. Let's talk about solutions.
I'm all about accountability. Pretty much a lot of what Rory said. I think we gotta look in the mirror first, and then because I can't be any good to anybody else if I'm not in my right mind and right place. But I think it starts with self, and then you work your way out. Pass that on to your spouse or to your kids or whatever like that. Because to me, that's the only, because it's so hard. Like in the example we had earlier of the 3-year-old doing the crack deal, it's so hard to infiltrate that family from where I am. For me to try to how do I break that up? It's I'm gonna say it's almost impossible. It's just by some stroke of fate or luck that we come into contact with one another. So you have to take what you have and make the best out of that, and then and hopefully you can spread, because we got a long journey ahead. It's not gonna be overnight. It's gonna be a continuous process of, like it was in the 60s, where we were constantly building and uplifting one another to the 70s, and then all of a sudden, the 80s came, and all of it kind of came, not all of it, but a lot of it came apart there. But it's going to take generations of building to get to where we need to go.
I think like y'all said it starts from self, but I think closely after that, because I see a situation right now that is a hyper focus on self-love, and that can be bad. It's more going more towards the individualism thing, because you hyper focus on self and what's going on internally. There's a healthy balance, like we said about balance is a healthy balance, and I think there's a hyper focus on, especially with the social media, because I'm doing this self that, or I'm going on trips, I'm doing this, that, the other, for not for self purposes, but for likes, for different
Right.
different people to
The
look at
outward
you a certain way.
gratification, yeah.
Yeah, there you go, the gratification.
Mhm.
So the thing that I would say is that whole balance has to be there, and then on top of that, you have to be willing to put your community ahead of yourself in that aspect, because like I said, once we're gone, I mean, it's a roll of the dice. You have no control, and it's not for us. Like I said, I was talking to my son's mother, and I was telling her that, I asked the question. I'm like, when I said about we're on the backs of our ancestors, I'm like, why do you think the ancestors did what they did back then? And it was like, what you mean? Well, why did they put their self on the line to do whatever? Well, to make a better life for themselves. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Because they were risking death. They were risking death, so they can't profit. They can't benefit off of
Yeah.
after dying. They were doing it for the next generation. So the thing is that we need to understand that what we doing now, it's for our kids and our kids' kids. Like you said, you have grandchildren. I don't know if you have grandchildren also, right?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? So you don't have
No.
grandchildren. I have 2. So the thing
Okay.
is that I'm doing all this stuff because I understand that if I don't do this right, how can I, being an old man, when I get retired and everything, be like, oh well, y'all to blame for this to blame, this, that, the other. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do my part, right? So this is what I'm saying about you have to put the community before you at some point and say, I have work to do.
Right.
And if you do work, if everybody does something, right,
Yeah.
I think we can do something. We can actually do something as a community, but everybody has to do something. They can't just say self, 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 and look at me on social media and all this other stuff. They have to actually put in the work, whether it be, like you said, reaching out to the young men that you pass in the streets, because the thing is, you've created a little sunshine in his day that day, and he's going to think about, there are
Yeah.
good people in this world. So that might change his mind to seeing people, the negative he see on social media, negative see other places, to say there are good people in this world, and it might change his heart in some way. I coach most of the time. I don't know if I'm gonna coach this year or not, but I coach football. Used to coach basketball, and I try to talk to these young men about certain things when I see certain things happen in my presence. I try to talk to them about certain things, give them, some kind of seed. I try to plant a little seed about something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's, like I said, if we do anything, we have to do something. We have to do just it might not seem like much, but there's the what is called the Petro principle. 20% is the 20-80 rule. 20-80
The
rule.
80-20.
80-20 rule. There
Yeah,
you go.
the 80-20, yeah.
So you do 20%, you could have an 80%, outcome.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is 20%. It doesn't take a lot. But if
you got to start.
each one of us do 20% of something,
yeah,
eventually we'll start to see an outcome. And I think that's the solution to me, is that everybody has to be involved in this.
And give of themselves, and not have it benefit just us, as an individual. We're gonna have to make some sacrifices. That's something else.
Yeah.
That's a little, is challenging for people, because again, faith is walking up the mountain and not knowing the next step, or I always butcher that, but you know what I mean, where you don't know what the next step is, but you just keep going anyway. And a lot of us don't have that faith. We just kind of figure out what we can do to get through this day, and we don't have the larger picture in mind, and it just, we need to start thinking in that way, like how our ancestors, how we hoped and think that they did was, for a brighter day. We might not be here to see it, but let's lay the groundwork so that it does happen, regardless of what's being done to us by other people. Because again, I've not gotten gigs or places in corporate America because I was Black. I'm sure of it. Didn't stop me, because what turns out, I wasn't meant to work with these people. Just go another way. And I think we have to kind of get, not get stuck with, racism is all around us. I don't think that's going to end. The racism in the internet is undefeated in a lot of ways, right? But you figure out a different path to get where you have to go. We can't just let it be the thing that, the victimhood of it all, right? And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It happens. It's not fair. And we are victims. But at some point, you have to raise yourself up out of the situation and find a different way. You've been picking what's behind door number 1. Pick behind door number 2 and door number 3 now. You have to make a different decision. But we want to have things come in the way in which we imagine them to happen. So now we have to deviate and figure out a different way. Oh God, that requires work.
Right.
And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And anybody can come up with a reason to not do. It's very easy to say, oh well, and that's one thing I can give my old man credit for. He didn't allow me to give excuses. I could tell him, the world caught on fire, and I couldn't make it home by it. He didn't care. He said, I told you to be here at 11. I don't care if the world did catch on fire.
Right.
That's not my problem.
You gotta figure it out.
Yeah, there you go. Simple as that. And when you don't have any cop outs, when you can't look to the left or the right, then you make it happen. And somehow things start to work out for you when you have that attitude, when you approach it that way.
Because you did the work.
Yeah,
the accountability is on you,
because
only on you.
It's only, and then for the most part of life, we were responsible probably for about 95% of everything in life that happens to us. It's very few things that happen to us where we say we had nothing to do with it.
Right.
but for the most part, we played a very major role in whatever happened to us in life.
So wait, are you saying that slavery was a choice?
Oh, Kanye. Oh, Lord, I'm sitting next to Kanye West. Hold on. Hey, that was a good one. That was a good one.
I'm not gonna say that, but
that was a good one.
we get into Africa a little bit. And how,
well, it was black folks that it was black folks.
Yeah, and that's also something else. People don't really want to talk about.
Right.
Is the facilitation, that took place. That kind of got this whole party started. And but that's we don't. Again, it goes back to accountability, because again, we enabling.
Right.
Nikki Barnes, and Freeway Rick Ross and all the rest, that did things in the community. We didn't hold nobody's feet to the fire.
Yeah.
We was just like, well, I'm not on drugs, so it don't affect me.
Or they gave
but
you
it
turkeys
does.
they gave you turkeys during Thanksgiving. They gave you kids presents during Christmas.
Right.
And he's like, oh, he ain't that bad. But he's poisoning your community.
But you gave presents to kids that didn't have no parents because of the drugs you was peddling. But let me mind my business. Like what?
Yeah.
How you can't make those two things, like you can't bring those together and have them reconcile, and we be okay with that. But that's what they did. It was like feeding sugar to a baby. It's like all this other ratchetness is going on, but I'm gonna do this to make it taste a little better and make you forget about the fact that I did this, because candy.
And now your baby got diabetes.
Right.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, you could correlate everything to something that we've discussed here today. I mean, it's just no getting away from it.
And this is the world we live in. We've been on this thing 2 hours, 6 minutes. I don't, I appreciate you wholeheartedly.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to invite you back for other stuff, because, hey, this is a great conversation, and, you bring a ton of knowledge, firsthand experience and everything. Like I said, people in our age group need to start speaking like this so younger generations could hear it.
Right.
And gain something from it.
Because we don't get to do it on social media. We too busy trying to defend why women are this way and men are that way. It's like we feel like we're attacking each other all the time. But to be able to sit down and have this kind of dialogue is necessary. And hopefully folks who are watching this will be like, oh, I never looked at it from that way. You know what? Let me try to, see what they're talking about. It's got to start somewhere. So you're a bridge to that. You're a conduit for sure. And that's me having never met you before today. This was very, comprehensive and educational and inspirational for me. Because again, being in our age group, most times when we're out and about, we're not having these discussions. And if we are, it's not to this extent.
It's brief, very brief.
It's very brief, because, folks don't want to get into that.
Yeah, true.
And we need to get into that. So definitely be glad to join you again. If my schedule permits, I definitely. And I'm also going to tell a friend to tell a friend.
I appreciate
to support
that.
you as well. That's
if you have anything that you want to bring to me, bring it to me. We'll talk about it, man. I have no problem.
I appreciate that. I really do.
Like I said, I appreciate you coming through and talking to us. I'm gonna go out with a video that's basically the solution that these people had. Talks about what we talked about, community.
Right.
So I'm gonna do that. Appreciate you. Have a good night, sister.
Thank you so much.
Meet you, Roy. My name is Eric, Roy. I know you kept saying the gentleman here.
Child, thank you. You caught that. I was like, what is his name? He said it, and then it just left my head. So thank you so much, Eric. I apologize for that. And I appreciate you.
No problem. No problem.
Telling me again. Thank y'all so much.
All right, no problem. Good night, sister.
Take care.
All right, you too. We have a comment. What we got? Appreciate you, Ash. She's a great show tonight. Thanks, Ash. I'm going to go out with this video, and I want to say shout out to Black Girl Interrupted. Ash, I appreciate you always coming through, always with the comments, always supporting us. And also Hezekiah News. That's where these clips came from. If you on YouTube, Hezekiah News, NEWZ.
They got all the stuff.
Yeah, he got all the stuff. He has a wealth of catalog of back stuff, from the 60s, 70s. He have a catalog like that too. 50, 60, 70, 89, and you could look it up. So like I said, I'm gonna close out with this video. It needs the community. That's what we need, the community. So here we go.
It's reported that a $10,000 investment in coke can yield $1 million return in just 1 week. For many, that's a proposition that they cannot say no to.
We got dreams, but you know, ain't never gonna come true. But we try, but when we're gonna go out there look for a job, they're like, you need this and you need that, and then I'll fly.
Police on the front line admit that it's virtually impossible to keep up.
Say I lock one of these guys up, he's selling drugs. By the time I get downtown, they have somebody else selling drugs for the same guy again. It doesn't matter. It's a charade.
But amidst all of the violence, officials are saying that there is one positive force, and it's not related to federal money or manpower, but to people. The people in the neighborhoods who've had enough and have decided to take back their communities, forcing out dealers and users.
I have 8 grandchildren, and I'm here for my grandchildren, and I'm here for the rest of the parents whose children are drug dealers or drug users, and we have to take the responsibility of our grandchildren.
And so in neighborhoods throughout Philadelphia, people are fighting back, fighting for their lives and the future.